Alright, hello Ace family. In this video we're going to go over some of the concrete patch and repair, some of the wood repair, and some of the sheetrock repair, as well as some of the tools that are associated with it. So starting off, we've got tile concrete repair. I'll just start from top to bottom and we'll go from there. So on top we've got a lot of the tools, a lot of the trowels. A lot of these are notched so that you can have the correct V-groove or square groove for the application, and I'll get to the products that you'd use these. We've got tile spacers, we've got tile grout in a tube, and then this is a kind of a tile silicone to help seal some stuff up, make it look nice. Linoleum knife, we've got some pocket squares here, some trowels, more trowels on the shelf here, just a lot of the really common tools for working some of the mortar and masonry stuff. Right here we've got stucco patch. Here we've got grout. So for those of you that don't know, the grout is when you have pieces of tile, they're the thin piece of concrete. It's usually colored in between the tiles to help seal it up. We've got ready mix concrete patch, small and large. This is a liquid crack filler, so if you do have hairline cracks that you want to take care of, this is what you'd go ahead and coat that with. And I skipped over this bottle. This is a concrete bonding additive. And where we see a lot of success with this is in our climate, where there's a lot of the ice melt on the roads, and then people pull up onto their concrete driveway, onto their garage, and all that ice melt melts off, and it will like pit or divot in the concrete itself, and that's it. Kind of takes off the surface, but it's usually not very deep. That's very difficult to get the concrete to adhere uniformly to those smaller pit grooves. It's a lot easier to patch. I mean, a big chunk missing than it is just a little surface level deal, but this helps us do that. So there's a few ways you can do it. You can mix this with the concrete that you're going to patch over and level over, or you can actually take this and paint it on with a brush onto the spot that might be hard to get the concrete to adhere to, and that will help that new concrete bond to the old stuff underneath and make sure you look like you have brand new concrete without ripping everything out, because that gets a lot more costly. Down here we've got concrete patch and resurfacer. This is dry, whereas these are wet. And then the next one over, we've got hydraulic cement, and hydraulic cement is really cool stuff. So when we're selling this to customers, it's a powder form, so it's kind of like opening flour, just to give you a sense of how fine the texture is. What you want to do is recommend latex gloves and a cheap mixing bucket, where it's a plastic or a paper mixing bucket, and you mix this to like the consistency of silly putty, almost, maybe a little bit less, maybe like a Play-Doh, and you kind of knead it, and then you can force it into some cracks where you're having water leak. So this certainly doesn't apply everywhere, but we had a farmer that we were helping that had a pump box that was leaking for one of the fields, and this thing was leaking. They couldn't get all the water drained out of it, and they asked me what to use, and I was like, oh, that's easy, just hydraulic cement. And they weren't aware of it, hadn't heard anything about that, and I told them how to use it: latex gloves, bucket, and mash it into the corners where you have really old concrete, you have water leaking. In this case, they wanted to keep water in. Usually you're trying to keep water out, and it kind of goes in, it sets up, the surface can be wet on it, and it just plugs it up. Really cool stuff, and certainly comes in handy. We've got a variety of thin set here. Perhaps I'll come back to that. These wedges that are hanging up top are to be used with these curved tile clips. They're just another way to make sure the tile is level as you're installing. We have silicone grout sealer right here, and this is the applicator for that silicone grout sealer, so that you can The issue with grout is it can absorb whatever's spilled on it. So if you have let's say white grout and red Kool-Aid that gets spilled and it's not sealed, you might end up with some pink grout. So sealing that helps any sort of stain or mess that could adhere to it. If that does happen and you have a customer who goes, it happened, it wasn't sealed or not sealed as well as I thought, this is a grout coating that can go over it that can help. I want to say bleach it, but I think it's actually a little bit more of a coating that does whiten it up. So there's a few options there for restoring grout and then sealing grout so that doesn't happen. Now, as we go down here, we've got more floor leveling, more floor patches on the bottom, and then we get into thin set mortar. So thin set, if a customer's looking for that, they typically will ask you specifically, hey, where's your thin set? We've got a few different sizes here, but thin set is for adhering tile to the floor. That's thin set adhesive. And so on the back of all of these, if you're helping a customer, a lot of DIY folks might come to you and say, hey, how's this done? Well, with this particular brand, they do a great job at showing you how the process actually is, making sure you have spacers, making sure you have a nice clean surface, and then the correct V-notch or square notch trowel that they recommend to use with this manufacturer. So this is ready to go. We've got thin set on the bottom in the gray and the white, and then we have, let's see, not pre-mixed. This is the pre-mixed grout that's ready to use. This is dry that is mixable in a few different colors here. There's a lot more colors that are available, but we just try to carry the basics so that folks can get taken care of when they need it. I think that takes care of the thin set mortar mix. The last thing that we have, we've got this this Repir product here, and we brought it in to try it, and it is for that application that I was talking about right at the beginning with the concrete bonding additive, where if you have pitted concrete that it's really hard to get that to stick. This is kind of a rubberized coating that will go over it. It'll adhere to the concrete, but it's kind of a self-leveling deal, so you can just kind of pour it on and you can guide it a little bit, but it'll get that taken care of too. So something that I thought might be a good idea. So now we can go ahead and scoot over to the next section. This is more of a wood filler, wood repair section, and we've got some drywall stuff too, but everything here is, I think, a little bit simpler. We've got different shades to go ahead and match whatever the customer needs. If they're filling a ding in their hardwood floor, in their wood trim, in their wood piano, this would be the spot that you can go ahead and try to match it. There's different putties you can rub together to try to get to the right color, and of course liquids. There's anyway a lot of options here to try to get to that right color, which is difficult sometimes. Right here we've got a few specialty glass tools, windows tools, glass cutter, a glazing tool, and another cutter. And then right here, these are glazier's points, and I've never had anyone, everyone that uses these knows the name of them, knows that they need them. So when a customer asks you for glazier's points, they're right here with the window stuff and the window glazing. Moving on to the wood filler, we've got a lot of different options for wood filler, and there's there just really is a lot of options. We've had good luck with all of them, and I haven't done a lot of the wood filling, wood patching myself, but what you really have to pay attention to is if it's interior or exterior. Some of these wood fillers are only rated for interior. This one has a big yellow line on it, or big orange line. I don't know my colors today. Big orange line on it that says interior. So if they're doing an exterior application, you better look a little bit further for it. And then the other thing is if it's stainable. Most of these are stainable, but some of them, sometimes that does come up, and I just want to make sure you're aware. These wood filler, this is a solvent-based wood filler. I'm almost positive, so finished, unfinished wood, I'm almost positive that it's interior, exterior. It absolutely is. Do not open this container in the store. It expands a little bit, and you're never going to get the lid back on, so it's hard to show the customer the product that's inside, but just know that it's kind of pressurized. It's like trying to get some dough back in the prepackaged box. Just kind of puffs up a little bit. Not that it blows up and you have to wear eye protection when you open it, but if a customer's wanting to know the texture or something, it's not a good idea to open these unless they're going to use it right away. The plastic wood we've seen a lot of success with that. This is it just hard. It's very hard. So we had a cupboard door that got ripped off, and the entire wood came with it. And so we used some of this plastic wood just because it is so hard, and filled it back up, shaped it up, and then took some sanding sponge and sanded it back down and re-drilled it, and it's worked great ever since. So good luck with that. Really haven't had any bad luck with anything. We try not to carry anything with bad luck. Bigger containers of glazing down here, and then we've got this rock hard stuff that is unlike the rest of them, where the rest of the wood fillers are a liquid, not a liquid, but they're moist. They're ready to go. They're ready mix. Whereas this, you have to add some water to it, and then it's ready to go. So you have to mix that, just an extra step. Right here we've got different types of wall texture. Oil base and a water base is real common. The oil base dries a lot quicker, but it's very volatile. It's got a little bit more odor. The water base is a lower odor. It dries it takes a hair longer to dry, but anyway, we do sell the water base. That's the more common one, but both are great options. Next over here, popcorn ceiling patch. We've got plaster of Paris, and then we get into some of the drywall applications. So this is drywall tape, some mud tape, and it's not on adhesive on either side. What the sheetrock guys will do is they put this up to help. So when you have two sheets of sheetrock that come together, there's a seam right there, and this gets mud put on it so that it hides the seam to make sure the wall looks even and uniform. We've got all sorts of different sizes here. This is fiberglass reinforced tape with adhesive on it, and this isn't as common, but if someone is doing it for the first time, doing a patch and seam, this can be a little bit easier for them to start out and get the process going. It's very often that customers will ask us for sheetrock corners, and we may start carrying those again. We didn't have a ton of success with them. It's quite a bit to order all at once, but even though we don't, so what I mean by that is when folks purchase sheetrock corners, they're usually like 8 foot or 10 foot tall, maybe they're 12, something like that. They're very tall, and they come in boxes of 50 or 100, so it's quite a bit to order, and we can sell them single, absolutely, but a lot of people come in and say, hey, where's your sheetrock corner? And go, well, we don't have those in the store right now, but what we do have is this roll. When this roll is unwound, it's actually meant to be a corner to go around it to get a nice and square edge. It's just in a slightly different package, so folks aren't used to that. So the upside is it's really nice, really compact. It's a longer roll, so whether you have 8-foot ceilings, 9-foot ceilings, 10-foot ceilings, this is cuttable, and then you can just move on to the next one, whereas the other ones are in strips. The downside to it is people aren't really used to it, so they're hesitant to work with it. And the other thing is that one's square. If you have a rounded sheetrock corner, which I think is more popular for new construction today, is the rounded corner. It doesn't do that. We just have the 90-degree square corner available. So just want to make sure you know where that is, know how that product looks. We've got some sheetrock mud on the bottom here. This is ready to mix and has just different dry times on them, the 20 and the 40. And then now we can go in. It's a good transition to the sheetrock stuff. So with the sheetrock stuff, we carry the USG brand. This is all purpose, and then we have the Plus 3. The Plus 3 is significantly lighter than the all purpose. Every contractor has their preference on how they like to do it, but the blue is the lightweight. So kind of nice when it's easier to carry. We have smaller buckets with that too. We've got the buckets that they use to trowel them on. We have just a different brown joint wallboard compound, and then the spackling and drywall repair for nail holes, other oopsies and accidents that happen within the home. And then we have this kit is fairly new, probably a year or two old. It has a patch in it, it's got a spatula, it goes on pink, and you know how it's ready to paint over is when it goes on pink, and then it'll actually dry white, so that you know when it's dry, so you don't accidentally paint too early. When it comes to actually fixing a hole, try to explain that real fast so that you have all the options for it. Real common is if someone doesn't have a door stop and their doorknob goes through the wall, and all of a sudden they have a fist-sized hole shaped through the wall, there's a few options to do it, but once you get a little bit bigger than like a 50-cent piece, you really have to do a patch in order to fix that properly. So we've got these patches here that are sold by the piece if the one in the kit is not big enough. And so what you do is you put the patch on, and then you have to put the spackle or the mud over it, depending on what you have laying around, depending on what size the customer wants to buy. So you'll take a putty knife and you'll go ahead and scrape that over the patch, and you want to leave it out a little bit. Try to feather it. It's not going to be perfect until you get done with the sanding step of it. So you've got your patch, you go ahead and you take your putty knife and brush on the mud so it's nice and thick, sticks out a little bit, and then what we do is we take a sanding sponge and we go ahead and sand it so it's back as flush as it can be. You're not going to notice a little variation in the sheetrock once it's painted. And so once that's sanded down, you might have to do one more layer of mud. It might be ready to paint at that point. Anytime you're doing a patch or new drywall, you always want to use a separate primer first. We've got smaller cans of primer, we've got the spray-on primer, whatever it takes to get that spot primed. And there's different types of texture that the customer might have to do. So we've got flat drywall, we do our patch, we get our mud on there, we let it dry, preferably overnight, and then we sand it down, and if it's ready to go, we can go ahead and use our spray-on bubble texture. We can trowel it a little bit better, just do our best to get it to match whatever the rest of the wall is. And then once that's on there, once that's done, then we can go ahead and we can do our coat of primer over it, whether you do a spray-on primer or whether you do a brush-on primer, and then we can get it painted with some paint that we can match, or maybe they're changing the whole color, or maybe they had some left over, and then it should look good as new. Might be a good recommendation in that case to see if they want a door stopper as well, so that maybe that can be prevented in the future. So hopefully that all makes sense. If not, as always, ask if you have any questions. We've got taping knives here, general drywall tools, corner trowel, and then we have, oh goodness, spackling compound, repaired tape, more patches up top, and then another thing that's real common is patching nail holes. So someone's hanging pictures, changing pictures, usually it's a little pin prick, but sometimes it's more than what you want to look at. So this is something that you can go ahead and squirt out, and it's got your putty knife all in one. So kind of a cool idea right there. When you get into bigger patches, anything that's really bigger than our biggest patch right here, what you really want to do is repair it with a piece of drywall. So what you do is you cut out your old drywall to where it's good, and then you can utilize these clips right here, and you can put in a new piece of drywall, whether it's this big, whether it's this big, get it attached on there, and it's the same repair process, just a little bit different, just going over the seams, making sure you get the primer before you do the paint. These are hand sander and pole sander, so these are to be used in conjunction with our sandpaper section that we have around the corner, so that the customer can sand the sheetrock down. These can be used for other applications, but it's in the sheetrock section. They're most common for sanding down the sheetrock. This one, the pole sander, same deal. This is just, instead of having a handle on it, it's meant to go on a pole. So it has the same screw-on threads as the extension poles, as the paint rollers that we have. So that's all compatible. If someone already has the pole for squeegeeing windows, it makes it that much easier to buy, because they don't have to buy a pole with it as well. I think that's about all from this section, except for I skipped over some of the concrete finish right here. So we have this fix-it-all, we have a concrete fix-it-all, and we've got floor resurfacer self-leveling concrete. So this stuff's really cool. It mixes really thin, kind of like when you pour a pancake onto a skillet, and it is meant to even out the concrete wherever you're going. If you have an older house, that concrete was not always poured evenly or level, and this will help to fix that so that you can get the slope adjusted right. This fix-it-all right here is really cool stuff too. Contractors generally know what they're looking for when they need this, but I've sold this green fix-it-all patch. It works for just about everything, and it's really neat. So the house I'm living in now was my great-grandparents', and when I moved in, it needed updated, and we moved some walls around. Well, we had some not issues with the floor, but where we moved the walls, there was the wood that was left that we had to level up for the new floor. And so that's where this came in, where we basically had a hole. It would have been a real pain to patch it with the right thickness of lumber. It would have taken a lot of work, whereas we came in, mixed it with a bucket, and kind of poured this in and troweled it out, and it was perfect, so that we had a nice good floor to go ahead and lay our new floor on top of it. And that's a very common application for this product, so that could save someone a lot of headache, you remembering that and kind of saying how it works. I know this is a quick story. That was a quick story, but don't be afraid to ask if you have any more questions. So we do have 5-gallon buckets of the sheetrock mud too, and then I wanted to kind of finish with some of the tools that we have here. So I've talked extensively about all the spatulas. that are used in the drywall application. Here they are. Some of them are flexible, some of them are very stiff, and it really comes down to whatever the customer's preference is and whatever they're going to be happiest with. In addition to that, we've got some brushes up top. This is a 5-gallon paint, 5-gallon of paint opener, 5-gallon jug of paint opener, a hook for that. We've got different, so stainless steel brushes, brass brushes, nylon brushes, and then we've got multi-packs here. We've got some other nylon brushes, wire brushes with the plastic. And the plastic handle is a very important application for us here in the town we're in, because of the food safety. We've got a lot of potato warehouses in our area, and so the food safety deal, they can't have any wood for what they have, so the plastic one is a nice addition to the paint planogram. Some wire brushes that are meant to go on a pole. And with all this stuff that does go on a pole, please remember during checkout that customers often screw this stuff in to the pole just to make sure it fits. We want to make sure we scan both the pole and this. It's just super important that you're familiar with the products, know what comes with a handle and know what doesn't, and just kind of pay attention to what has tags and what doesn't. So don't forget to kind of look thoroughly when something is attached to a pole. Obviously the brooms come with the head, but there's some products that don't, so we just want to make sure we know what we're doing there. Let's see, some different tools. Which way do I want to go? We'll go this way. So we're going to kick over to the painting tools real quick. The paint shields are real nice. What these are used for those of you that don't know, that if you have a corner, instead of taping off the whole corner of the ceiling of the room, you can take this and brush your paint on, and then you can move over to the next section and keep brushing, and then you can save the time with taping instead of, you don't have to tape, you can use this instead. We've got these smaller paint shields, multi-pack here, and then we've got this ginormous one here. That's scholarly, right? Ginormous. That's a bigger paint shield that can be real convenient for folks. Other paint tools are these paint stirrers right here. They just go on a standard drill and they will stir a 5-gallon bucket, 1 gallon a bucket of paint, whatever folks want. Really, it comes down to preference on these. These both stir paint, but this one, this guy right here, it's a little bit heavier duty, and it's actually okay to be using with sheetrock mud too to help get that stirred up. This one is meant specifically for paint, so it won't work with the sheetrock mud. I think it does a better job of stirring the paint because it gets the corners a little bit better, so you can have a nice consistent color all the way through. But they will both work, and it really just comes down to customer preference on the difference between those. We've got plastic bladed scrapers right here, which is pretty cool if you're worried about damaging something, whether it's a stovetop, whether it's a window, something you definitely don't want to be scratched. Can be a good option. And then we've got some bigger floor scrapers, roof scrapers, whatever you want to call them, and these come in super handy for a lot of folks. When you're peeling up tile, you're peeling up linoleum, the less you have to bend over, the better, and that's truer and truer the older you get. But if you can go in and scrape that and be stood up, it is absolutely awesome. So that's what these are for. And they have replaceable blades too. We've got them on the bottom below them, so don't forget, just, hey, if you're going through a lot, do you want to take a few extra blades? Absolutely can't hurt. Worst they can say is no. Best they can say is, hey, thank you so much, you saved me a trip. I would have forgot that completely. And that's a good thing, to save someone a trip. The rest of these down here, we've got a lot of options for blades, and we've got a lot of more options next to the tape measures where the other razor blades are, like these guys. So we definitely do have a small assortment here, but most of these blades are straight on, and this is actually probably the best example where everything's in the package, where the blade's straight and you're pushing straight up, whereas the razor blades over next to the tape measures, they're more at an angle for actually cutting, whereas these are actually for scraping. So that's kind of the main reason for similar products in different sections, is just the style of it. Replacement blades, these paint scrapers are absolutely awesome, absolutely nice. I got the chance to use these about a year ago on a house, had a bunch of flaking paint. They did not prime before they did exterior paint, and they didn't use very high quality paint, and it all peeled, and we had to get the stuff off that didn't fall off. And this goes, and all you had to do was rub it on there, and it did a great job of popping off the paint off of the wood, so that we could get a nice fresh coat of primer and use some awesome Clark & Kensington paint on it, and now it's done right and it looks fantastic. So these also have replacement blades on them. They just do a great job of flaking off the loose chips of any surface, but a surface you're going to paint, and gets that nice and smooth, so that it's a uniform coat and the top coat looks good of whatever you're doing new on it. Some additional blades, additional scrapers. We've got some plastic scrapers here. Let's see, some more glass and tile blades for reloads for the bigger one here. Let's see, and then we do have a lot of, so we've got some bristle brushes, some basically metal bristle brushes here. We've got these in our welding section too. But anyway, if we are out there or we're out here, we've got more in another location in the store. So just don't be afraid to be thinking outside of the box there, and remember where we have everything. Last thing we have, I think, is the heat guns here. So the heat guns, we kind of have a good and we've got a best right here. This one has more heat settings. The red one is more popular, more heat settings. The other one has more. So the red one's the most popular, I think, because it's cheaper. Usually people are thawing out pipes, doing whatever. The gray one has more heat settings. It goes to a hotter temperature. It's just got more bells and whistles on it. It's 1500 watt, whereas the red is the 1200 watt. But we've had great luck with both of them. Don't be afraid. Open the box, give it to the customer, let them hold it, feel it, play with it a little bit, and make sure they're happy with the purchase they're about to make. So hopefully that covers everything okay. As always, ask if you have any questions. Thanks.